All right, welcome everybody to the Matrexit discussion group call tonight. And what we're going to be covering is using new technology for a problem that everybody's had for quite a while, which is how to deal with the courts and knowing how to proceed. And Rodney's going to be on with us here, and he's going to be explaining some things about it and how to use this process correctly. And Rodney, I'm just going to turn it over to you, let you introduce yourself, and then run with it.
All right. Well, Brian, that was a little bit choppy, but thank you for your introduction right there. And just to give everybody a little bit of background of who I am, where I come from. I was born and raised here in Inglewood, California. Joined the Air Force straight after high school, and then right from the Air Force, I joined the LAXPD Police Department in the year 2000, and pretty much, like, I think when I was in the Air Force, I got sent over to Kuwait, and that's where I just started to question a lot of things, like why I was there, what was going on, and I just started to be an analytical thinker, I think. And from there in 2000, I get into the police academy, finish up the police academy. Right when I finished the police academy, 9/11, I'm in training, 9/11 hits, and then everything changes. And I stood there and watched in the airport how things could just, out of nowhere, certain things you could do. And then the next day, it just totally changed to like everything where the feds were there. You used to have private companies there, but then out of nowhere, TSA comes in. And then I start to just watch all of our rights decline. So as I watched that after 9/11, and I just start to question why things were changing. And I eventually joined the Police Officers Union. And once I joined the Police Officers Union, I was on there for 2004 to 2016. 2 of those years was done as the treasurer. So I started to see the ins and outs of everything that was going on with the police unions, how various things were influenced. And that allowed me, my time with the police union, to really see the structure and how it worked behind the scenes, how just how, like, even you follow the bylaws and how the meetings get structured. And from that point, I could say right after being in the police union, it led to, I saw a family member, and he ended up with he had a case that came up, and it was a criminal case that came up, and the whole family watched it. We went to court, and he was really successful at winning the case. But at that point in time, that was my first real experience, just taking a liking and watching the legal system and watching it operate. And that led to me, on a constant basis, watching Judge Judy, Judge Joe Brown, and so forth. And as I'm starting to watch these shows, I'm just watching. It's all about keeping and making a record. And one of the things that I saw with this is basically like conflict and conflict resolution. And at the end of the day, once you end up with a certain conflict, you have to set the record correctly. And then when you set the record correctly, there's a process and procedure how this works through the court system. And then now, especially with the invention of AI, and then now how you can utilize AI, it really can help and assist you in various aspects. And one of the things that I would say is I got into pretty much the litigation. When I started watching it, I was going into the courts. It's like a foreign language. And as you start seeing this language, I used to just get off from work. I work graveyards, and I go sit in the morning time and go sit in the courts and watch how all this plays out. And there's a language that everybody's speaking in there. There's a process and there's a procedure. And that's a language that we're not taught as just the average Joe Blow, just the average person, even the police officer. We're not taught this. This is it's the administrative process. It's the procedures that take place in the courtroom. And it doesn't even matter. You have substantive law and administrative law. But the substantive law, we always looking at it, and we're like, this is what the law says, and everybody can see what the law says. But then when you get in the court, well, there's all these processes and procedures, and your evidence may never get before the judge. So that led to me, numerous battles that I've been through. I could say the first battle was, let me think. One of the first battles that I saw was as 8 years into police department, started in 2000 and 2008, and it became a big thing. There was the sovereign citizen movement, and they talked about these individuals, and I just started to look into what this sovereign citizen movement was. What are we talking about? What are we referring to? And that's when I just started to study the Constitution. And when you start to study the Constitution, I start to take a look at, pretty much, you start taking a look at the Constitution, and you realize as a police officer, we didn't even know what we were enforcing. I just started to ask a lot of questions. And what that eventually led to, it eventually led me to getting blackballed in the department. I eventually got terminated from my employment back in 2012. And, I had to go back in, and I pretty much had to fight to get my job back. And when it was time for me to go and fight and get my job back in 2012, I represented myself. And I went through the whole process, went through the whole procedure, and just really start to learn it. And through this process, helping others in court, I used to sit with others in court, watch how the proceedings would go down. And as I'm watching these proceedings go down, at one point, I'm also arrested. And back in 2012, I was arrested in the San Bernardino courthouse just for filming, watching. I had some other friends there, and we were always just fighters. And one thing I can say, we were always just fighters and wanted to know how this system worked. But it's like David versus Goliath. You don't know how it works, but you just kind of know you're being done wrong. And through these experiences, like I was in the Rancho Cucamonga courthouse and just filming. I'm sorry, I was standing in the back, and the judge had ordered everybody out the courtroom, and I'm standing down the hallway, and San Bernardino County Sheriff comes up and arrests me because I'm filming from about 20 feet away. And I felt really wronged. The DA luckily dropped the case, and that was one of my first Title 42, Section 1983 cases that I brought. Okay, and then there was a second one at the same time. When I was going through my wrongful termination with the job, I basically got blackballed. And this was in 2012. When I started talking about the Constitution, the department didn't like it. And there was a lot of things that happened behind the scenes, and they terminated my employment. And I couldn't count on the union attorneys. I couldn't count on anybody. But what I knew was I had the basic facts. And then I went in there, and, I got a group of people to come in there with me to watch the hearings every day. And I was able to get reinstated through the Civil Service Commission. And that's when I started to I was like, okay, I think I can do this. And then at the same time, I had two Title 42, Section 1983 cases going, one against San Bernardino County Sheriff, and then one at my actual residence against the Los Angeles County Sheriff. And the way I got into that, I just knew my rights had been violated. One, I had been arrested. The second one, the LA County Sheriff had come into my house. And you start looking for attorneys. And the first thing, no attorney wants to take it because there's not enough damage. But I wasn't happy about what they did to my family. So I'm like, okay, so if you're going to treat my family like this, you're going to violate my rights. I'm going to hold you accountable for it. And I actually brought those cases. I did pretty, you bring the original motions at the very beginning. Then after you bring the original complaint, then there's the flurry of motions. And I got past all the demurs, so I knew I had pled the case appropriately. And then I got into depositions, and then county counsel came up to me and told me he was going to file a summary judgment. And then I was like, uh-oh, I'm at the end of the line. I don't know how to handle this. And then I got introduced to one of my good buddies, Angelo, and he had heard about what I was doing, and then he just guided me to the right material. And he was like, you're making these wrong arguments. You have to know how to make an appropriate legal argument in court. And he zeroed me in. And it was just I always learned, if I'm ever if I ever want to write something, I have to go into the practice guides. And then now that you have AI with the practice guides, and you put the AI along with the practice guides, and then it can assist you with getting remedy, or assist you with even writing your own pleadings. And so make a long story short, back then, before we even had AI, he focused me in, and then I was able to get the LA County Sheriff to settle the case right before trial. And that was out. Then at that point, I was like, okay, if they're paying on any type of money, I don't have an attorney. I was like, I have a halfway idea. It gave me the confidence that I knew halfway what was going on. And then in San Bernardino, they let him out on qualified immunity, took him right to trial, but then they let him out on a qualified immunity. But it just showed me the whole process in the federal courts. So basically from there, then just recently, I had been in litigation for my house. I had, you look at all the different things for the home and the foreclosures and everything else. So I stopped paying my mortgage in '08. I had stopped paying in '08. I said I'll never make another payment. And I had been battling. I went to federal court, state court. And just at the beginning of January, I got quiet title to my property and got the final judgment where they cleared. The judge actually removes everybody from the title. And it was a long process. And it was just about understanding how to respond. All that I even had my house had foreclosed. It was I was going through the unlawful detainer court constantly. But what it just, anytime you're getting all these legal actions, it's like, do you know the procedure? Do you know the procedure on how to respond? Like and it got to the point when I was like in the unlawful detainer court, it's a sped up process where oftentimes you have 30 days to respond, but when you're in unlawful detainer, it may only be 5 days. It's an expedited process. So I had attorneys, once you start to know how to respond, then they start what they call sewer serving me, where they wouldn't even serve me the items, and then it's hard for you to respond. And but then you just start to, you start to learn. You trap the attorneys with not necessarily trap them, but you use the procedure, and eventually, was able to turn the judge, and then you get the resolution out of it. So that was one of the landmark cases. I've been dealing currently also right now. My grandfather had passed back in 2022, and I've been dealing. Pretty much the trustees were allowed, see, what you have is you have a living trust, and then the trustees, there's two parties that he put in charge. He had a total of 5 beneficiaries, 5 children, but then he has 2 people that he puts in charge as co-trustees, and the co-trustees are just supposed to follow his will, not his will, but his trust, and it gives them clear instructions on what they're supposed to do. But what occurred in this situation is the trustees started taking money. They were doing all kind of stuff outside of the trust, stating that my grandfather had promised them certain things. And they're saying this is his wishes, but it's nowhere in the trust. It's nowhere in the trust at all. And they can't find it. So what happens is when the trustees, after everything is dispersed, all the insurance policies are paid out, property sold, or whatever they were going to do, now there's a pot of money, and then it has to be dispersed in the trust so many different ways, and it's clearly defined. But so when they give out the final accounting, everybody has to sign off on the final accounting. And if you don't, then it's an issue. They can't move. So what they did, right when my mom sees the final accounting, we said, like, all this money is missing, what's wrong, and then they won't answer our objections. Right away, they say, we're just taking you to court. They use the trust money, pay about $14,000 to have an attorney, and then they're filing a petition to just basically have this pushed through the court. So if you don't know how to oppose that, basically they're just going to push the accounting through with all the trust money. And I hear this happening to a lot of people right now. So we look around Los Angeles, and any attorney just to come on wants $10,000 just to even oppose it, all the trust attorneys. So what I did was I was pretty familiar, with AI. And so what I did, I pretty much create a prompt for a litigation attorney or for a probate attorney. The case was out of Stanley Moss Courthouse, and I create a probate attorney as a prompt, and then I load the trust into the prompt to assist my mom. And then at that point, we look it up, and after the trustees had filed their petition, we filed a motion to dismiss for lack of jurisdiction, and then they dismissed their own case. And then now it's at the point. So using AI, I was able to take a look at this and analyze what they did. It was illegal for the attorney to even bring it into court. So then my mom did a motion to have him pay back all the money that he took. And then we also did a motion to have the trustees removed, which is pending. Those hearings are coming up in the next few weeks. And it also, we were able to do discovery. We asked like 30 admissions, 30 interrogatories, 30 productions. So we were using all the court rules. And she was able to use all the court rules to get everything that she needed and fight these various attorneys. And it came out now that they paid over, they're on a third law firm now going against my mom, and they've paid over $37,000 of the trust funds to fight just my mother. But it goes to show you my mom was able to stand her ground legally and set a perfect record on them. So, and the latest thing that I'm going through right now is I was terminated from my job again. And what occurred in the latest termination was it was during the COVID-19 pandemic. And when the COVID-19 pandemic came, the first thing that we realized was they were passing out forms and enforcing certain ordinances. And there was so it was for me and three other officers. We noticed this, and they're pretty much violating our rights. They're trying to send people home, just doing things that are against even what we call the Peace Officer Bill of Rights. So we start to question these documents. How can these documents be in violation of state and federal law? So as we look into the origin of these documents, we go all the way down to City Hall and the city clerk, and we find that these forms they were passing around had never went through the legislative process. So I started going all the way up and down the chain of command, exposing these forms. And then we looked into the penal code and we found that it's actually a felony to do something with these type of forms. It's a violation of penal code section 115. So we started reporting this, me and three other officers started reporting this up and down the chain of command, and nobody wanted to take a look at it. And one day, August 25th in 2022, I'm speaking to the EEO coordinator about this. And then he refers me over, when I'm reporting the forms, he refers me over to a psychologist that night and says I'm having a mental problem. So instead of investigating what I'm actually reporting, refers me to a psychologist. I go to the psychologist. That first psychologist clears me. He's like, there's absolutely no issue. Put this guy back in the field. And then I'm off for a few days. I come back to work on Monday. I make an arrest. Then they're pulling me out the field again, saying I need to see another psychologist. And at that point, I see another one 3 times again. And then they're not happy with that. So then they send me downtown for a work fitness evaluation. And then at that point, there's a thing in medical terminology that when they're sending you for a medical evaluation, you have to give a thing called informed consent. And I kept telling them, I said, hey, I'm a whistleblower. I've been explaining that you guys are spreading fraudulent documents, and now I'm under psychological investigation. So I want to give informed consent. And once I want to give informed consent, I was terminated for insubordination. So that's and that's where we're at today. So I went through that whole process. Then I just recently went through the Civil Service Commission. The Civil Service Commission wouldn't let me bring up any of my issues. I was representing myself through the Civil Service Commission. I wasn't allowed to bring up any issues about the forms because it appears is like doubling down, and they don't want to talk about the forms because it really, if you go into these forms, there's thousands of employees that were affected by it. And then now that you can see they were never passed through the legislative process, it creates a major problem. So that was the highlights of it. Currently, I'm in the process of, I have actually a writ due on Wednesday. So I have my own writ, a writ to appeal the civil services decision. And then also, that's what's coming up next. And so going through the court process, that's pretty much my background right there, Brian,
Right. Yeah, and what it's looking like to me, and I've explained this to Jim as well, is that in using the AI and you're using ChatGPT, you're setting up borders, you're setting up boundaries for the AI to follow when they're writing these forms for you. Correct?
Yeah, so it's an interesting thing that I saw, and that's why I think can really think of it just a little bit broader. I think it can help with anything. So if you have the issue, yes, you can use AI to give it the story and let it be your tool to aid and assist you in whatever you're doing. So whatever, you could get anything from anywhere, and I'd have it do an analysis on it first. You know what I'm saying? So say you get a red light ticket. Okay, give me an analysis on this, and what can or can I not do with it? You see what I'm saying? What are my legal options? And that's how you can start to use AI as an assistant. So just like when I'll give you an example. So like when we went into probate court, right? I didn't even really know much about probate, trust, or anything else. I'd done Title 42s, I did house stuff, all this other stuff, but never did probate. So the first thing that I did, you're getting, okay, so you get all this paperwork from an attorney, right? Oh, so you got all this stuff and whatever the issue is. So you need to take that paperwork and give AI the paperwork. So you have AI chat, whoever you're using is just, I look at it like it's a large language model. It's like it knows everything. So you think of it like that. So now you just have to know the right questions. So if I'm getting something from a probate court, I'm gonna say, okay, I need somebody that's qualified in probate, and you create a prompt from that. So you can just create a quick prompt and say, hey, I need, who's the most certified or qualified person to handle a probate issue, and it's gonna tell you. And then see, once it tells you, like I'll give you an example. Let me type that prompt in right now. So if I says, I am in probate court and need some assistance, then I say, who is the most qualified individual to assist me with legal matters, right? So if I said that, right, and then so I would first, I'm creating a prompt, right? So I'm telling it to create me a prompt. So the most qualified for a legal strategy. Okay, so it says a probate attorney, most qualified for legal strategy and court representation. Why? He's licensed to give legal advice, file petitions, represent you in court, and challenge trustees or beneficiaries. Best for complex trust or estate litigation, removal of trustees, filing objections to final accounts, filing petitions, how to find one, and then it says search or so forth. But so what I'm going to tell it is, I'm going to say, create me a prompt. A prompt for this attorney that I can use in my chat, right? So now watch this. So it says a prompt for attorney chat. So this is my prompt now for chat, right? Hello, I am currently involved in a probate. Oh, no, sorry. Wait. No, okay, I'm sorry. Create me a prompt for this. I need to. So he can review my docs. I want to read it to you once I get it. It's a little bit confusing. Okay, I got to get it. So one of the main things that, okay, let me see. So I am in, so I'm going to tell you what I'm typing here, right? So I'll give you a hypothetical. So give me a hypothetical, a case that you may have or something, somewhere you may be, something that you'd have a question about.
Go ahead and take it, Jim.
Anything. You're on mute. You're on mute, Jim. You're on mute.
Test 1, 2. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Well, I'm trying to. First of all, I think I'm pretty much drawn the distinction between myself as the holder and the name, and instead I'm a general agent for the name. So I'm operating in capacity of general agency in a in a limited capacity, making special appearance to challenge jurisdiction. What I want to do is be able to put this information in so they can see that they need to go to the Secretary of the Treasury, the actual principal, the party of record, the true party, rather than me as general agent. I've got I defaulted with a series of administrative papers, the Secretary of the Treasury, so they now, by tacit procuration and silent assent, have agreed with my position that I defaulted them on. And I also have a letter from the Secretary of, the Social Security Administration that says that it draws a distinction between me and the name on the birth certificate, me and the name that I may or may not use. And it says that I'm merely an authorized representative, an agent, with and there is no guarantor or surety. So basically, now what I want to do is make this stuff appear without traversing. I have a hearing coming up. It's called a calendar call, which is basically, look, I've already won a couple of these things where they just decide nolo prosecci. Then they'll dismiss it because they don't want to touch it. But now within a month and a half, I've gotten 13 tickets, 3 court cases in 3 adjacent counties. And I know they talk. And now they're doing a calendar call because that's basically what they want to use. The A, ensnare me to traverse, and B, they want to see what cards I have in my hand. But this is the time since I wasn't able to enter a plea guilty. I said, I'm clearly in my capacity as general agent. I haven't been authorized to enter a plea on behalf of the principal, the Secretary of the Treasury. So I don't know that I have the authority as a general agent to enter a plea on their behalf. The judge went ahead and entered a plea, but I haven't entered a plea. He entered a plea on behalf of the name on the birth certificate. I haven't yet. I can't enter a plea on me, but there's a distinction between me and the birth certificate. So I want to make the information that I have available. I've been playing around with ChatGPT, trying to make these pleadings, but I don't want these pleadings to have me traverse and suddenly be an actual party as a defendant or as a co-defendant.
Okay, what type of court are you in?
That would be the State Court of Georgia.
Is that a criminal or civil court you're in?
It's a criminal court. Normally it would be tickets, but one of the things is they said they didn't give me reasonable articulable suspicion of a crime. So, I basically said Terry versus Ohio. I'm going to politely refuse to provide identification. At no time did I use a name for identification. They threw me in a solitary for about 72 hours, took prints, and they came up with the name of the defendant, which I stand on the ground that I'm clearly not one and the same with that named defendant that they pulled out of their system.
Yeah, but I think, okay, and I understand what it's like. You're mixing the trust law with the procedure and I understand
the trust law and agency. The big question I have on this, I did a show with Brian and a couple other folks where I can show that name is a trust. But the 4 parties, I can't be the res of the trust. I can't be a property in the trust. Northwest Ordinance says no slavery. I'm clearly not the trustee. I'm not a grantor. I was a baby. I didn't put anything in. And I'm not a beneficiary. I haven't received a benefit. So what's my relation to the trust? Now, what I did is I sent all this stuff to the Secretary of the Treasury because on the Social Security Administration website where they show it's a trust, I said, look, it looks like there's some sort of implied agency here, that I'm some sort of general agent. Please correct me if I'm wrong. Blah, 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 blah. I laid it all out. And then I sent them a second letter after 14 days after they were sent back the green card. I said, hey, This is what I laid out. I'm operating under this assumption. Please correct my assumption, or I'm going to proceed by your silence that I'm on the right path. Then the third one came out, and it's like, look, at this time, it's collateral estoppel. I've made every good effort I can. I've served you as required under Georgia law. You now have full knowledge. You're not acting. This could be, if I have a damage, this could be constructive fraud. But in the meantime, I'm operating. You basically, by your silence, have agreed that I'm an agent. So I'm mixing agent law with trust law. I'm an agent to the principal, which is the trustee. They have legal title. A trustee holds legal title to any entity. I'm not a beneficiary. I'm not exactly sure who's that is, but it doesn't matter. If I'm an agent, under agency law, you have basically one primary objective, and that's give full knowledge and disclosure of any claims and charges against the principal's property. So that's what I did. I've done my job. I have no liability. I'm not, like I said, the Social Security Administration gave me a piece of paper saying that I'm merely an authorized representative. I'm not the name. And there is no guarantor. So I'm not the surety for it. So.
And Jim, but Jim,
let him go. Yeah.
And Jim, I've heard these arguments exactly that you're making before, and I've been down that road. But and let me ask you something: have you ever seen it work? Or are you just always constantly at battle with the judges?
No, it's actually the past times I've done this has been they dismiss no lay pros. They don't want to deal with it.
Because because what I look at, like, okay, even if you were to, instead of confronting it from let's look at it like this. So instead of confronting a ticket,
I don't have a social. By the way, there's some stuff you don't know. Years ago, when I completed the user product, I gave the paperwork back to the Treasury. Okay, so they're holders in due course of the birth certificate. I'm not. The Social Security Administration sealed the account. I no longer use a social. This is like 15 years ago. The principle of latches. It's happened years ago. On top of that, the IRS left me alone. They're like, go away. Don't even come into the bill. I was escorted out of the IRS building. License, I voluntarily surrendered the Florida driver's license. So I extinguished all contracts, basically by and through that name and that number. So now the question is, do I have minimal points of contact? And I say no. Every piece of paper they wanted me to sign, I always signed it. First of all, I asked them, if I don't do this, then is there a penalty? Blah, 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 blah. Yeah, we're going to throw you in jail. Okay, fine. I'm under threat, duress, and coercion. So on the blank, anything they give me, I write general agent, under duress. So there is no contract. I've never personally appeared. There's nothing attaching that name to me. I've severed that over the past 15 years.
So did you have a question about one of them, though? One of the cases?
Well, now what I've got is I have this calendar call coming up. Now this time, I think they've thrown them out and I beat them by default in the darkness of night. Now I think what they want to do is they're testing me to see what I got. They're going to see, they want to peek at my hand.
What jurisdiction? Where you say you was in Georgia?
Georgia, Habersham County Courthouse. It's a municipal court there. I have another one going on down in Banks, but they call it probate court down there. It's like going into my high school lunchroom. I can't believe how unprofessional.
In Georgia, a calendar call is a court proceeding where the judge, prosecutor, and defense attorney convene to discuss the status of a criminal case. But you're saying they're traffic tickets, you saying?
Yeah.
This hearing typically occurs shortly before a trial is scheduled and serves to determine whether the case is ready to proceed. Okay.
The judge would not let me speak. I did mention, I said, look, I'm here by special appearance in my limited capacity as general agent to test I'm challenging in rem in personam and territorial jurisdiction, but he was shouted over me and shouted over me. He didn't want it on the record. I'm going to enter a plea, and then I was like going to ask him, well, what are you appointing yourself trustee or attorney? And he was like, I don't want to hear any of this. I don't want to hear any of this. Be quiet. And he didn't want me to even talk.
Jim, and this is what I would. This is my experiences and watching this for some years. That there, when you come in with the trust, and I'm not even sure of exactly how you guys are doing. And I know it's something, a process that you're doing, but I can't speak for that. But what I do know, the most effective way that I've seen it that works is if there's a charge that's brought against you, you look at the rules in that court, and then you apply the rules in that court to dismiss it. So like if like I know like this, and I remember it was a really interesting issue. Like this has happened in I was in a traffic court many years ago, right? So I'm just looking around. So I'm going to use the rules of the court. I'm not going to talk anything about anything else, right? All I want to do is use the rules. I have to use their procedures. So when I'm in somebody else's world, I can't come here talking about trust law and I'm stepping in for this. Forget about that. I want to know what type of procedure are you guys bringing against me, and what are you required to have? That's the first thing.
Okay.
And I tell you this little story that I remember. I had a good buddy. His name was Melvin Anthony, and I remember he was at Orange County. It was all it's online. You can see the YouTube video, and him and his wife are getting out the car. They come and give his wife a ticket for expired registration. I think they're going to tow the car, but he's getting ready to leave, and he comes back, and then they beat him and his wife up, and they're in jail, and now that they have charges of battery on a police officer and resisting. Okay, and so we start going down every day. This is in 2012. And we're down in Newport Beach on top of that, because it happened at Orange County Airport. We're down in Newport Beach. This big black guy and an Asian girl.
I went to USC and UC Irvine. I lived down in Old Town Orange.
There you go.
Mesa. I know the area very well.
So I'm gonna tell you, and let me tell you, I'll tell you what happened in this, and this was the most interesting thing that I ever saw happen, because I stopped bringing up all this other stuff, and we went and pulled the criminal rules. Now listen to what we did. We pulled the criminal rules. We looked at the charging document that they was giving to Melvin and his wife. Okay.
I'm gonna drop this down.
Okay. So and then as we looked at it, there was a part on there that the DA, there has to be a signature on the. It was, I don't remember exactly what it's called, but when the DA is actually charging you with the crime, because he started representing himself. Okay. So this signature is not on there. So when he gets to an arraignment, you got to understand, when you go in and then the judge is saying guilty, not guilty, or he's going to enter a plea for you, that's like your arraignment where they're entering the charges. If they don't have everything that they're required to have at that point, then you can't enter a plea. You understand what I'm saying? Because like you can turn to the judge and say, hey, in order for you to bring, and in his case, in order for you to bring a criminal case against me, the criminal code of procedure says a complaint has to have the following things, and this thing doesn't have that. Therefore, you don't have a proper complaint. So we moved to dismiss this case, and that's what happened in Melvin's. And what happened was they kept battling him, and then they kept saying he didn't know how to represent himself. And then at one point, the public defender stands up and even starts representing. She starts representing him, and it got so crazy. So when the public defender stood up and represented Melvin, he said he had a right to represent himself. So we walked in over the weekend, filed a Title 42 against the public defender and the judge that put the public defender over it. And then all of a sudden, the public defender removed himself from the case. Okay. So I'm telling you how this whole process works. So we had to go in for like 12 to 15 different hearings. Every time we would go in there, we had the support. We would all go in there, and the power is in people being there and writing affidavits. So when they come out, and then so like if you're there and you're my support or whatever else, and you're sitting in the courtroom and the judge is doing something wrong, the power is me to stand there and write an affidavit, file that into the case. Now you got a record, because the judge is always creating a record. You got to understand. Forget about all the theatrics in court and all that nonsense. Forget about that. All that matters, he's going to give you a minute order. And see what I'm saying? So what ended up happening in Melvin's case, eventually he represented himself. Then it took a few hearings. Then they had to put the attorney over him. Then the attorney removed himself. And before you know it, they were past 45 days. So what happens is there's a thing called speedy trial. Everybody has to get trial within 45 days, or at least out here in California, that's the way it is. And if you don't get it in 40, but everybody normally waives time. So normally you get a public defender that the judge get, enter the plea for you, come back to court in so many months, but everybody waives time. Melvin never waived time. So then at this point, now the judges are screwed. They haven't got the case going. He hasn't got past an arraignment. So then we file a motion with the court to dismiss the case because they're past time, and we got the whole case thrown out. So that's just like, so what I'm telling you is everybody's case would be different, right? I don't know. I'm not an attorney, but like, this is what I do know. Say somebody comes to me right now, like say all of a sudden my a great family member comes to me and says, "Hey, I just got charged with whatever, theft. I just got arrested last night and all this," right? So you got a couple of options, right? So you can go with the public defender. You can go public defender. You can pay an attorney. You got 10 to 15,000. You can get your an attorney, or you can start looking this up for yourself. And the first thing, like, I want to know is like, there's going to be some type of charging. Okay, maybe I'm representing myself. This just happened last night. Like, maybe I'll say, I just got a DUI last night. This just happened. And now I got this paperwork. What happens from here? And then when you can feed all that in there, if somebody that it allowed me to act as a pro se litigant without the assistance of counsel, because it becomes my counsel. So, like,
that
I would.
Up an interesting case because this all happened on January 21st.
What does that mean?
That I got. I don't know if I put it out here, but I do First Amendment auditing. When I got pulled over, I had a talk at the curbside. He wouldn't give his name, wouldn't give his number. He just pushed for ID. It's like, okay, fine, I'll give you ID. But, am I being detained? Yeah, under reasonable articulable suspicion. You're an officer. You understand, the Terry stop requirements. And what is it versus Texas? Dodd versus Texas. Anyway, but and then I asked him for a supervisor, and he said he was going to supervisor. No supervisor. He just pulled me out of the car, carted me off, said I was obstructing. Obviously, okay. All I was doing was just asking that for reasonable articulable suspicion of a crime. There was no, he says, "Oh, you had a chain hanging off your trailer." And I said, "Okay, that's ticketable. That's an infraction. You can write a ticket, yeah, you don't need an ID. You need a misdemeanor or a felony, or at least reasonable articulable suspicion." Well, if you don't give me your license, you're going to be committing one. Obstruction. What? No, obstruction is a secondary. I'm not resisting in any way. I'm just requiring you jump through the proper hoops so that we can move forward on a legitimate path. But he didn't get a supervisor. He just kind of made a calculable decision at the curbside and threw me in jail. And that was a John Doe for about a day and a half. They didn't know me, who I was, or anything. Then they came up with an old ticket an old license that I had voluntarily surrendered and extinguished and terminated any contract thereunder. The birth certificate, that's all extinguished and sent back in. I mean, I don't know where they get that I am that name, because I never responded to that name. I never gave them that name.
See, but this is, and Jim, I hear what you're saying, but I like you got to think about this. I was a police officer. I'm trained in a certain way, and I understand I understand both worlds where you say I'm traveling or I'm driving. And I understand the difference. Because
I didn't say anything. I didn't even talk about commerce. I didn't even go down that sovereign citizen sounding stuff. I was holding him accountable at the curbside. That's all. But
like, where you but this is where I would take from it. It almost sounds like like when you say certain things. Okay, so like you don't have to get into it with the officer over there, because there's certain things that you can just do later on. Like, and I'll give you an example. So like whatever he's doing, maybe he didn't have a reason to do it, but you if you battle with him right there, then that's a different issue. And then they end up getting combative, right? And then they took you in or whatever else. Like, one of the things that I'll do is,
I was not combative. I was very respectful and honorable. He was getting weird and melting. He didn't know what he was doing. I found out that he had been a cop for by 1 year, April, no, less than a year. So he was totally rookie cop. And I've done all the traveling by right and the gold fringe, all that bull crap back in the 80s and 90s. I'm an older guy, so I don't do that sovereign citizen crap. It doesn't work. So, but I did sever. Look, you know, you don't know me. I live in the mountains of Georgia. I'm off grid. I know all my neighbors. I'm a pastor and a benefit to my community, you know, but and I do come from a position that you can't serve two masters. I don't know, you know, if you study the Bible or what, if you have any faith pattern, you know, practice or anything like that, but you know, they don't recognize I'm an ambassador from the kingdom of heaven under 2 Corinthians 5:20. They don't even use that law book in there. But I live by a certain creed, and I give to Caesar what Caesar's due, but I can't serve two masters. That's where I'm coming from. And I live off grid. You can put me I'm an old Eagle Scout. Give me a 6-foot piece of twine and a jackknife, send me off in the woods, and I'll do just fine. You know, I'll be just fine. And all I really want to do is just be left alone. That's all. Tend my bees, my chickens, be a blessing to the community. I volunteer up in North Carolina. I go up there with my bobcat, clear my mudslides and rescue body parts and you know. I don't do it for money. I do it for, you know, God points, if you want to call it that. Mm-hmm. And I do it because it's the right thing to do.
Okay.
Hey, Brian's back. How's your voice?
Yeah, no, I've been there the whole time. I want to see if we can just get back on track with using the AI for a court case, and the situation with Jim where he had something is they call on call, which I told him to me it looks like a status here, and so for instance, how would we use AI for a status hearing and set the perimeters of what needs to be done in court, establishing that?
Yeah, and let me just say that I went over last week to get the court, the rules of court, and they didn't have them. They wanted me to come back this week. But any motions or anything I want to do, any evidence, I'm going to get that in before the calendar call, because my understanding, I've talked to people about calendar calls, you want to bring all that stuff and lay it out up front. And then unless new information comes up during the trial, you kind of have to stick to those guidelines. You can't just be running willy-nilly with evidence here, there. We have lay it all on the table. So that's what I was going to do.
Yeah. Well, see, typically and that's why whatever jurisdiction you're in has their rules, right? So like, I mean, all the way, probate court has their rules, the civil court, civil code of procedure and so forth. The criminal court has their rules of procedure. So when you talk about so the first thing, if I'm looking at anything, so this is the first thing. So that's when I asked, well, what is this thing? When you called it a calendar call, because they normally don't, I normally don't hear that terminology here. Right. But so now I found out what a calendar call is. So then now the next thing, I would be utilizing all the AI for that. So think of this for a second. You said Georgia. Okay. So when I'm creating AI, right, I'm creating a prompt. So I say basically create me a prompt for a Georgia.
What's a prompt? Is that are you creating an artificial entity to answer from a certain point?
Kind of, sort of. It's like creating something with knowledge. So think of it did you ever play? I consider did you ever play football? They call it Tecmo Bowl or NBA Live, where you can create a character.
Oh, here. Okay.
Okay, so
like creating an avatar.
Yeah. So like, and I get if you ever watch the NBA, you have Shaquille O'Neal, and then maybe a
Yeah,
guy
yeah,
like
yeah.
Steph Curry. So if I
Yeah.
create a character, so like when you play NBA
Wilt,
Live,
I'm an older guy. Wilt, Michael
okay,
Jordan. Yeah, I'm
Wilton, Jerry
old
West,
school.
right?
Dr. J. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, but when you create a prompt, and I consider it like this, you can go on these games and sometimes create a special character. And that special character, you can create it with Will Chamberlain, power and speed and so forth. But then the dribblings of Jerry West or whatever it may be. So you would take all these top priorities and merge them together and then have it perform in your game. And it's going to perform great. So it's the same thing. When I'm dealing with AI, and it really helped me. Like I did a lot of time looking at what AI was, and AI is a large language model. Think of it as that's your baseline. No matter if it's Chat GPT, Grok, or whatever, all the different ones, they're large language models. They're like, and they've been filled with all this knowledge. So you can ask it anything. So you just need to know the question. If you have the
Right,
question,
right.
it will
Yeah,
give you the
that's
answer,
the trick, knowing
right?
what to ask.
So you need to know what to ask. So I'd be like, don't ask me. So you might say, hey, Rodney, you know how to do this. How would I do this? I say, ask that thing. Because if you ask it, it's going to give you a better answer. But the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to create. So I'm going into Georgia. I'm like, and I actually want to do this for you. My AI was messed up earlier. So
Yeah.
I have, and you have traffic tickets, right?
Yeah.
And
Well, it is a ticket, but the charge is obstruction, which is a misdemeanor.
oh, you got an instruction. Oh, okay, gotcha. I had
Yeah,
traffic tickets
because I refused to give an ID,
and
and
a
they call that obstruction.
misdemeanor.
But you and I
Obstruction
know
charge.
that's not, but it doesn't qualify. But
Oh, I got you. But that's what they're charging with. So I have
yeah,
traffic tickets and a misdemeanor for obstruction that occurred as a result of a traffic stop, right?
right. For refusal to present identification.
Okay. I am in, what did you say, Georgia?
Yes, Habersham County, Georgia.
How you spell that? Hamersham?
Habersham, Haber. Pardon me. ERSHAM. Habersham.
Okay. Habersham, Georgia. I
By the way, Rodney, thank you very much in advance. I appreciate you participating here today.
Oh, sure. So
Yeah.
with the legal matter, and then it was what was that? Okay, let me see. Create me a prompt. Create me a prompt. And watch, I'll show you. So hopefully my internet or my things work around. And then once you hear it, then you'll understand why I do it.
Okay.
So I create turn. Okay, watch this. Okay, finally came up. So I'm gonna read this prompt. So now, all I basically told it was that you got pulled over in a traffic stop. You're in Habersham County, Georgia, and right, and you got a ticket and a misdemeanor offense, right? And I
Okay.
told it you have a call coming up and you need some assistance, right?
Okay.
That's all I told it. I gave it.
Oh, okay.
I gave it the facts, right? That's what you
Right.
got. You got a traffic ticket. You got all these problems. You got judges coming after you, right?
I like how you keep it service level. It's hard to do that when you're embroiled in the middle of it all. But
And
yeah.
you got it's like doing brain surgery. I've been representing myself for years. It's like doing
Right.
brain surgery. It's hard. But I just want to know the material facts. I don't care about all the rest of this other stuff. The sun was shining. I need to know material facts, right? Because that's what law is.
Gotcha.
You got to speak their language. Because I hear the language you're speaking. And let me, Jim, I'll be straight out with you. I went down this road. They used to call me certain things. You're speaking a sovereign citizen type language. Now listen, hear me out, because I went down that road. and in 2012. And then when I met my mentor person, and he put me on the right path, he was like, Rodney, throw all that stuff out. And I only want you to deal with the rules of court, because the way you're going to get that judge to move is with the rules of court. And then with him, when he goes out of pocket, you have judicial canons. So you can put him back in line. So, but that's the only way you're going to win your case. You're not going to win with the other stuff. You're going to have deputies surrounding you and all the rest of that stuff. When you go in there with the rules of court, they'll respect you. They'll smile. Hey, Mr. Rouzan, come on up. The judges respect you. And that's the way you want to do it, the easy way. And I'm not saying the easy way, the legal way. And the legal system works good for you, but you have to understand how it works. And that's and you're battling the system because you don't understand it. It's like a David and a Goliath. I was so frustrated with it. And then when I understood it, I was still frustrated because it's overwhelming. But all I'm saying is AI, it leveled the playing field. It leveled the playing field with the attorneys, in my personal opinion. Okay, so now let me tell you the prompt I just created, right?
Okay.
You are a highly experienced criminal defense attorney, licensed in Georgia with a strong background in traffic law and misdemeanor defense. You've practiced for over 15 years, and you are especially familiar with court procedures and prosecutors in Habersham County, Georgia. Your role is to assist me, a client who has received a traffic ticket and misdemeanor obstruction charge as a result of a traffic stop in Habersham County. Your tasks include reviewing the charges and identifying all potential defenses, explaining how Georgia law treats misdemeanor obstruction and traffic offenses, outlining what to expect in Habersham County Court, advising on how to reduce or dismiss charges, negotiate plea deals, or prepare for trial. Help me understand deadlines, court filings, and legal strategies. You are clear, aggressive when needed, but always strategic. You break down complex legal ideas into plain language and help me build a defense plan that protects my record and future. Okay? So now,
Awesome.
What's your question?
Yeah, and you typed all that right now?
So that's your prompt. That's your prompt. So now the next question is, so now you said, now what's the next question? You have a hearing coming out when?
I have a calendar call coming up June 18th.
A calendar call on June 18th. Provide me a. And I want to find out when our motions due. And see, I can just come here and ask it everything, and it'll tell me a smarter answer than any attorney will tell me, because AI is smarter than the normal attorneys.
You know, I've been getting a little better, but I've played with it for a handful of days. Chat GPT.
Oh yeah.
It's actually helping me put things into form, paperwork into form, but it's a little frustrating because, like you say, garbage in, garbage out. If I'm not asking the right question, it's not going to give me the right answer.
Yeah. So I'm going to tell you some things I pulled up for you. What is a calendar call in Georgia? A calendar call is a court hearing where the judge reviews all the cases scheduled for trial during an upcoming term. The purpose is to determine the status of each case, confirm whether the parties are ready for trial, allow plea deals to be entered before trial, set trial dates if needed. If it is not a trial, but it is an important step that may impact how how the case proceeds. What happens at calendar call June 18, 2025? Your attorney will appear before the judge, or if it's you, confirm your representation or self-attorney, announce your intentions, ready for trial, request for continuance, enter a plea deal, still in negotiation or waiting discovery. The state prosecutor will announce their readiness. The judge will set a trial date or require motions to be filed by a specific deadline. Important, if you do not show up, a bench warrant can be issued. When are motions due? So this is pre-trial. In Georgia, criminal cases, pretrial motions, e.g. motions to suppress evidence, dismiss charges, must be filed within 10 days after the arraignment. When was the arraignment? When did you have the last arraignment?
The arraignment was about 10 days ago.
See, but yeah, so
I thought I had 10 days before, but 10 days, I have to get all this stuff in within 10 days.
Is within 10 days after the arraignment, unless the court extends the time, and then that's COCGA 17.7, but it gives you all the statutes here. Okay. However, some counties like Hambersham may allow longer depending on local custom or judicial discretion. So calculate. If you've already been arraigned, your deadline may have passed or may be imminent. If your arraignment hasn't happened yet, you'll have 10 days afterwards. If you're unsure whether an arraignment has occurred, the calendar serve both purposes to be served. And it just goes on and on, right? And so I learned how to prompt things like that. So what happens is now it can give me, if I'm looking at it, then I would take it and say, okay, this is what I got. And then you plug that in. Okay, what is my strategy? What can I do? Act as, you see what I'm saying? Do I have a legal defense? I can ask it all these questions. Because if you don't have nothing, then you got to settle in it. I don't know what you've done or whatever it is, but sometimes it's best just to settle. You don't even have it. You understand what I'm saying? And one of the ways, like in traffic, this was the interesting thing, that this is how I've attacked traffic before. Okay. Is it a criminal or civil proceeding? And you have to ask yourself that. And they're treating it as a criminal, obviously, because you're at an arraignment. So if you're at an arraignment, see, in civil, you receive a summons and complaint, right? Have you ever, if you got sued by somebody?
Well, they did the arraignment, and I couldn't enter a plea because of who I am, the status of being general agent.
But if you're saying, but you got to understand, and I understand everything you're saying, Jim. But the judge is like, listen, he's in the other world here, right? So he's like, first of all, the only people that can speak in his court is somebody that's passed the bar, or the real party, who he sees as Jim Waterfall, right? Or that's who he sees. Okay. Now, if you're saying I'm not Jim or whatever else, I'm the registered agent. Okay, well, you can't talk then. You can't talk in this hearing.
Right.
Be quiet.
Right.
So now
that's where I'm stuck. So where can I put it without traversing?
See, without traversing, what I want to do is anytime somebody's bringing a charge against me, right? Okay. I want to look at the charge. I want to look at whatever they gave me, the charging document, the ticket. And then what I want to do is I want to find out what possible are my legal remedy to have it thrown out. It's just like, you ever heard like when an attorney will demur you. So a demur, or in federal court, they call it a 12B6 for failure to state a claim for a cause of action, right? So I would always want to, I'd rather you want to look within the procedures to see why that may not be legally sufficient.
That's the court procedure I go to.
And yes, and then see, there's various things like I have personally filed a demur in a traffic ticket case. You understand what I'm saying? Okay. Because I can file a demur because I'm saying, okay, if you guys want to use criminal court, and this is a traffic, or you want to use criminal court, well, then I'm going to go into criminal rules of procedure and says your charging document isn't sufficient, and then I can file a demur to have it dismissed. That's one way it could possibly be done. But but what I'm just saying is, like, I can't speak on your personal case right now, right? But what I'm saying is, let's not look at trust law or anything else. You just only look at procedural. So when you're in Georgia court, find out what the procedures are. And like I just showed you, like even in the prompt, find out what are the rules. So like I can go right in here right now. So in these type of proceedings, right? So I'm asking my attorney, right? Or my AI attorney, right? In these proceedings, what are the rules? That's a simple question, right? So you want to know what the rules are,
right?
So I'm just going to ask it simply, and that's going to tell me in a minute.
I couldn't find it anywhere online.
So you are primarily governed by the official code of Georgia and annotated Uniform Superior Court rules, Georgia rules of evidence, and the local rules, Habersham County. Okay, so you said you couldn't find it.
Not the specific.
Please provide me a link to all the rules.
You found the rules
that regulate these hearings. I'll let you know in a second. I might be able to give you a link.
Yeah, you let your AI do it for you.
Yeah, man. Let me see if they gave me a link. And then normally you can find this all. You should be able to find all this on Google. I mean, yeah, but okay. Provide me a clickable click. So provide me a. I'm gonna see if it gave me all the rules, but I'm gonna see if it gave me a clickable link.
You got rules?
No, well, I know I can. It's easy to find the rules because they're public record. I just don't have them yet. Hold on.
They
Okay,
should have given me a link when I went into the courthouse.
To the Georgia, but yeah. So the right applicable to felon. Okay, so these are misdemeanor. Let's see, Cherokee. Are you familiar with Cherokee County?
No, not Cherokee. I'm far from it. I know where it is. Yeah.
This is Uniform State for Superior Courts of Georgia. Where's Cobb County?
No, Cobb County. Oh, that's way down south. No, I'm Habersham County State Court.
Oh, here we go. Habersham County Clerk of the Court. Let's see, for misdemeanor. Let's see. I think I got it. Okay, so let's see. I'm on there. And like, does your court have a you should have you should be a website for your courthouse.
I go to the website and it doesn't have court.
They don't have the rules on the website.
Procedure. Yeah, I was just there a second ago. Here, HabershamClerkOfCourt.com or Habersham GA.
So we need Habersham County State for misdemeanor trial local. We need the local rules. So okay, so now we're on here. Home. And you can always do it up. You can always, and it's really good too. If you ever have a problem, and here you go right here on their website, open records request too. So see, if you're ever having issues finding anything too, you use chat. You can use AI to write you a public records request.
Okay.
See what I'm saying? And then you can always do in almost every place that I know now, the government entities have a portal. So you can just go in there in whatever county, like I say, LA County public records request. And then the LA County will come up to lacounty.gov, and then there'll be a place where you can do your public records. You go right into the chat and say, hey, I need all the local rules, this, that, whatever else.
That'd be nice. But I'm way up here in the mountains of Georgia. It's kind of backwoods. It's not, they're still in the 90s, man, when it comes to technology. They haven't put all that stuff on their website. I'm looking at it now. HabershamGA.com/
Yeah, I'm seeing it's kind of like
statecourt.cfm.
But I would do, man, let me see. Yeah, I see. Let's see. Your government. I'm gonna have AI do this for me. I don't want to do. Okay, let's see. Provide me a link to the Habersham County Court rules for misdemeanor. And normally they won't have traffic rules because there is no rules for traffic. I found that out over here. There is no rules. There is no rule. So in LA County on our websites, they have, it'll say the criminal code, civil code, family code, probate code, but there's no traffic. So there is no rules.
Well, in state court, I think they just put it under criminal.
And that's what I'm telling you. See, they're treating it like criminal, but it's not criminal. And see, I get everything you're saying. See, you're a police officer pulling me over and you're stopping me, but you don't have reasonable suspicion of a crime because traffic's not a crime. And I understand every argument that you're making. I get it. But you can't stand there and argue with that police officer who has no idea what you're talking about.
Right. That's why I asked for a supervisor. But
supervisors don't know what you're talking about. I done worked around these guys my whole life. They don't know what you're talking about. You understand what I'm saying? You call the chief. He don't know what you're talking about. You understand what I'm saying? Because you over here, I'm not driving. I'm traveling. No,
I didn't do that.
But I'm hypothetical. And even okay, but you're even saying I haven't committed a crime. In his mind, if he sees you a broken tail light, he got reason to stop you. He can call the whole force in his mind. And I get what you're saying, but in his mind, you're a First Amendment auditor. I watch those all the time. So
I'm a nice guy. I'm not like Direct D. Or
yeah.
NC Tyrant Hunter. I'm not here to provoke some explosion by a public, a public servant and get a bunch of clicks for, monetizing my YouTube channel. I'm not doing that.
Yeah. But like, that's what it's a learning curve. And like, they didn't know it and here's another thing. What I find with the police officers, there is no continued education. There was very, very little of that. And
unless it's court ordered.
Yeah, yeah. And one thing like I saw was how did I want to say this? It skipped my mind. I went to because I did a whole YouTube video on it, but it skipped my mind right now.
What's your YouTube channel?
Word Wars. So it's WORD WARS 101.
And that'll be in the description box on YouTube.
Yeah.
Okay.
And see, so you'll see in there like the main thing that Jim, and I'm looking, and they just keep leading you back to this website, right? So this is what I would do if I was you. I would go into the chat, right? Like, and let me do this real quick. So, and I'll tell you what it sounds like. I cannot locate. Okay, prepare me a public. So I'm saying prepare me a public records request for the clerk of the court and provide me all relevant rules for traffic. I want criminal and civil at Habersham County. County.
Georgia.
Okay. Yeah, it'll know. All right. Okay. And then I'll read it to you. So so it will say, I don't need it for his case. I just want the general rules. And it even gets better because I just speak a lot of it in, so I can go a lot faster.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. It was giving me too much. So let me see. See, PR request below. Okay. All right, let's see. And that's like really what sped me up, because like when you're dealing with PD or whoever else, so if I'm gonna get pulled over, I'm just making a good record. I'm not arguing with nobody. I'm the nice guy, right? I don't want to argue with nobody. I don't want to go to jail. So you're better off just make your record, and when you make a record, record things like that, right? And whatever they're gonna do, make your objections, but don't be argumentative. Because you just don't want to get hurt. You don't want to be arguing.
I was careful about objecting, because if I'm not a party, I will become one the minute I traverse by objecting. I'm now a party.
Well, like when I say I don't get into traversing. I think on the record, like if somebody's doing something wrong, no, I don't agree. No, you can't search my car. I object. Whatever you want to say, and you're not whatever. And then you can also, like, even when you say officer, you don't have probable cause or reasonable suspicion, or you don't have a crime, you can't detain me. All those things are fine for you to say, but don't get argumentative with them. As long as you say it on the record, that's all you need to do. I wouldn't keep getting into. You don't need to get into more than that, because then later on, the main thing you want to do is now you can turn around and do a public records request. I want body cameras. I want radio calls. I want logs. I want all the video footage. And then now you have a record. If your rights were violated, now you're going to handle this in paper. I'm not standing here and arguing with you. And this is the art of conflict. So if you look at I look at this as this really, what it gave me the ability to do was handle my own conflicts. And it gave me, I could competently stand on my own. Because oftentimes you can talk and you can do all these other things, but if you can't stand in a court of law, how far are you really going to go?
Right.
Because I find with the cities and all this, they big, bad, and they doing all these different things and trying to, that's what it's all about. They got attorneys from everywhere. And one, I know with the city, at one point I was down 8, 9 attorneys. And then they hit you with all these different things. And then I know at some point in time, there's how is he responding? But it was now AI even the playing field. You understand what I'm saying? So if you just take a look at, and it's going to take some time, but this is something I've mastered now because I had to.
I've got to have everything by Monday now, right? If I have 10 days, I thought I had 10 days from the calendar call to have it in.
There you go. But see, the first thing you got to do is you just need to get in here and you need to create your little prompt. Look at the guy, and I can even give you the prompt that I created, no problem. And then you go in here and start asking it questions. Say, I don't know Georgia law, but it does.
Yeah.
And it say, okay, what can I do? I don't know. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I do personal training, man. So one of the things I do is I create programs. I have one of my prompts is Arnold Schwarzenegger and a guy named Charles Poliquin and Ben Patrick. So Charles Poliquin was an Olympic trainer. Arnold Schwarzenegger, we know who he is. So I take all their philosophies and put them together and create a prompt. And I say, now you're a kinesiology major with the training from and the aspect and training of all these 3 individuals, and you're a dietitian. And now I need you to take this person who's 30 years old and create them a 30-day workout program. Come out like butter. You see what I'm saying? So, so I can at one point do the personal training, and at the next point, I'm over here helping mom with her probate, and then the next thing, I'm writing a writ. I wrote a writ in one night. And it was just, here's your open public records request, right? So, and it just created this. Public records subject, public records request, Court of Rules and Procedures for Traffic, Criminal, and Civil Proceedings. Dear Clerk of the Court, pursuant to Georgia's Open Records Act, OCGA 50.18/70 et sec, I am requesting access to copies of the following public records. Any local court rules, standing orders, or procedural guidelines currently in effect for traffic cases, misdemeanor or felony proceedings, and civil cases in both state and Superior Court of Hasbersham County. Any documents, memorandum, or published manuals.
There's no Superior Court here, but okay, go ahead.
Okay, but any documents, memorandum, or published manuals issued by Mountain Judicial Circuit that regulate courtroom procedures, calendar calls, motion deadlines, or trial scheduling for the above types of cases. 3, any fee schedules, public notices, or administrative bulletins issued by the clerk of the court office regarding court operations. Please provide the requested documents in electronic format if available. If there are any fees associated with the production of these records, please notify me in advance with an estimate. If any portion of the request is denied, please cite the specific legal exemption and provide a written explanation. Thank you for your time and assistance. I look forward to your response within 3 business days. As they only got 3 days, they got 10 here, so they only got 3 days to respond to you. So bam, and then there you go. You put your name in here, and then you can actually
give me my email.
yeah. And then what you do is you're gonna put your copy. So all what you do right here is, so I can show you how to do this because you got to learn how to do this.
Right.
I want to show you because I'm so excited.
I'm fumbling through. Believe me, I'm trying to teach myself. And I'm stumbling all over myself.
And then you put this in there, and then you go right online.
That I'm still, the technology is moving so fast, and I'm just I'm an infant when it comes to this stuff.
So if you do have an email, and then so what you do is you go right on their website, because I saw it. And then there's a section on there. You click on the home page. You click on public records requests. Then you would take and copy and paste this public records request in there. They'll give you a tracking number. You'll have a tracking number, and then it'll pop right up. You'll get an email once it's available in 3 days.
Awesome. So, Yeah, I could even submit that now in the middle of the night.
On their
And
portal.
they would have it Tuesday morning when they go in.
Yeah.
And
Probably,
that would be
awesome.
awesome.
Yeah, and then see the key about that. Now you want to see, and the main thing with that. So now you get their rules. Okay.
Right.
So you got to make sure you're in compliance with the rules. So now once you get those rules, guess what? You in the chat you can create projects. So you create a project. So now you have we have Jim Waterfall's project, Jim's Waterfall's traffic project, right? That's what we call it, right? Or you can ask chat, what is a good name to call this? You can ask it everything, right? And it can come up with some good names. Give me 10 good names we can call this, right? Just for the fun of it. So you create the project. Then within the project, I can put in 20 different documents in it. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put all the court rules that they give me, I'm gonna upload all the court rules into my project. So then when I have an issue, now the DA just sent me this. I'm gonna load with the DA, I'm gonna say, examine this, review the court rules, examine this, and tell me how I can respond to this. And it's going to tell you. And then it will draft a motion for you too.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So, but I need to have that stuff local so I can upload it to my avatar or my what'd you call it?
That's why you're gonna get it from them. They'll give it to you.
Right. But I have to do that on my own machine with my ChatGPT prompter or whatever you prompt, right? That's what you called it.
I call it a prompt.
Yeah.
So I'm just putting anybody into character, right? So if I want to, I'm thinking right now it's hot outside. I got some grass growing, and I got say I had a 12 by 20 patch out front. So I'm just hypothetically saying I'm about to create a gardener. I'm gonna create a landscaper, and I'm gonna create this guy first. I'm gonna say, who is the most skilled person in the world who can, in Los Angeles, California, who can do this and do that and it's gonna say, oh, you need a guy that has all these qualities, right? Some type of gardener, right? So then now once I create that gardener, now imagine if I had the smartest gardener in the world standing right here on my computer. Yeah. So then what am I gonna say to him? What am I gonna say to him? Hey, my grass is 12 by 20. I want to lay sod.
That's
how
brilliant.
Much do I need? It's done.
You create your own teammate and mentor. Awesome. That's pretty cool.
And then once you know,
I'm such a beginner at this stuff.
And stop arguing. So this is what I would just tell you. We always play by when in Rome, act like the Romans, right? Even if you're not. Right. So when you're in that court, don't talk the trust law. And I get a the judge and all that, but he's not there. He talks the rules. So if you're gonna argue with something he's saying, you better find it in the rules and bring a legally competent motion before him. Then he has to rule on motions that are legally competent. And then like I do it so cold, what I do is I create a judge. Because once I create my motion, then I create a judge and have the judge make a ruling on my motion to kind of figure out how the judge is gonna go. And it's pretty accurate. It's pretty accurate. It's really accurate. Like I'll be like, tell me if I put this motion before you. I say, now you're a Superior Court judge. If I put this motion before you, how would you rule on it? Or what I've even done for the trust in when I was assisting my mother, I'm like, okay, act as the opposing counsel who's fighting against like my mother. And I says, tell me what you would do. And it'll give you a whole analysis. I say, tell me what my aunties are thinking. And it'll give you a whole playbook. She's thinking this, she's thinking that. Yeah.
Oh man. There's so much to learn, so little time.
So, and then that's what I saw. But see, what I saw with AI, and see, I've known this, and we were back at this, I think, Brian, like you were saying, probably when Fred and them were around, and it was a lot of people that wanted to fight or just want, you just felt like you're wrong and you just didn't know how to do it. And now with the invention of AI, where the average Joe Blow can write a public records request that looks legally competent. You see what I'm saying? You just have to know what it is. Who can write these motions and it says all this, and that's an art. But now that they've given us this and you have it, with just you still need people to bounce it off of, obviously. Like, hey, what about this? But man, once you learn the fundamentals of it, man, you'd be off and running. You'd be doing all kind of stuff.
Okay. You know what? I find this stuff fun. I don't know. I've been doing it for 40 something years and I find it entertaining.
Well, this is the change right here. This is the biggest change.
Up my game.
This is bigger than the internet. AI is bigger than when the internet got here. It's like AI. It's like the internet on steroids.
Right.
Like seriously.
Wow, I'm already in overwhelm. I've got a lot to do. I didn't realize it got 10 days. I thought I had 10 days from the calendar call. I have to have it in 10 days in advance.
And but even when you say 10 days, 10 days, and what are you going to file and what is your defense? So see, you got to first thing you got to do is go in there and see what, if defense you had one. You see what I'm saying?
I had ChatGPT write me up some stuff, but I didn't use an avatar. I just fumbled my way through it for like 3 days, asking a series of questions and building it out and putting more of the details of my case in. And it says here, you can challenge in rem and persona territorial jurisdiction like this. And it actually put up some stuff for me, put together some pleadings. But I'm hesitant to put it in there because, again, well, I guess if I'm going to challenge jurisdiction, see, here's another thing that I'm confused at. If I'm not the proper party of record, then, and if standing where I am on the position of being the agent and not being able to enter a plea, I'm not see how that arraignment applies to me. It applies to their entity, and that's fine.
Hey, but when they pull their entity into custody, that's you attached, and you got to realize that. So hey, Jim, I hear what you're saying, but it ain't gonna work.
Okay.
And what I'm saying, well, I'm not gonna say that, and I can't say that, but I saw it for a long time. What I did see work is when you take their rules and you use their rules against them. And that's the best thing that I can say.
All the little technicalities, their timing, their this, their that. What?
Yes. Yeah, I'm saying that. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Exactly. So whatever you use their rules. So if you use their rules and you have to take, what I'm saying is I'm now you have all the rules. You're going to be able to get all the rules. You know that, right?
Right.
Now you get all the rules. And then now
see where they violated the rules. And then you point that out with a motion to dismiss.
Yes. This is why I would tell you. So, and I could tell you, like, as a First Amendment auditor, if I was a First Amendment auditor, and now you're going down to Atlanta, Georgia Police Department tomorrow,
right,
this is what I would do. I would make sure I have all of Atlanta, Georgia's police departments policies and procedures. Okay.
Beautiful.
So now,
now
you have all their policies and procedures. So when I'm standing there talking to them, right, officer, let me have your name, right, and then F you, whatever, right. So then I say, chat. I know there's, like, in our policy, we had a section. We used to have to mention our first and last name and serial number. Okay. We had to say all that. That's right. What our policy said.
Oh, you did first name too. Okay.
We had to do it all, and I was like, what? And when I read it, I didn't know that. And I probably would have told somebody, if you would have asked me for my first name, I probably would have said, screw you. Right?
Right.
But think of this for a second. So if I had the first and last name, I'm sorry, not the first, but if our policy says that, so I would say, like, LAXPD policy, and I walk up to LAX, I'm doing a First Amendment audit, and I say, officer, he comes up to me for whatever reason, let me have your first and last name, and he won't do it. Then I say, hey, chat, research the airport police policy and tell me what section requires the officers to do that, and it'll give it to you right away. Now, it's our officer, pursuant to airport police policy 12, it says an officer must give the following, and your first and last name. Now, give it to me. Now, he's either going to say yes or no. Now, if he says no, I can walk away and do a public records request for his body camera. Then I can write this whole complaint up and send it to internal. I can write the whole official complaint with this body camera and the rules, and they attach the rules and exhibit and turn it into internal affairs. And he's done.
I took all the film myself, but a lot of times around here, when you ask for body cams, they say, "Oh, it's an active investigation. We're not going to."
You don't know, and then chat's going to teach you how to respond to it too.
What's that? No, and Chat GPT will respond.
So now when they respond to it, then now you're going to analyze it analyze it for the nonsense that they're saying, analyze it for violations of the CPRA Act, and provide me a response, and it will. And then it will file you. And if you really want to get funky with them, you go a few rounds with them, and then it will file you a petition to take it into the Superior Court to compel them to produce it if you really need it.
That's good. Yeah, I've been looking into having like there's a thing called an England reservation to be able to pull things out of lower courts and into higher courts. I thought that England reservation, it sounds like it's appropriate if it's if half of what I'm doing is dealing with contracts through the government, if I'm a government agent.
Run your exact
This is
scenario.
definitely a game changer, Rodney, for sure. I appreciate your time.
Yeah. Cool. But yeah, that's what I would say. I don't know if we have to cut it here soon, but yeah, what I would just say, Jim, yeah, what you do is once you ask it all these information and ask for, what you do is you feed it the facts and then ask it for the answers.
Right.
And then even I would, even say this, like some of the things may be considered these sovereign citizen type arguments. So tell chat that. So make sure that when you give me a response that I'm not sounding like this or falling within that. So help me with it.
Right.
Now it can, and help me make a legally competent response. Because once you make a legally competent response, I can already see from the beginning if I'm a win or lose. And even if the judge is going to go sideways, because that's the only one that sometimes will go sideways. If you know how to move him back to his spot, he has like 5 rules, the judicial canons. If you know how to bring him back to where he has to be, then you're going to win your case if the facts line up.
Gotcha. Well, good thing I filmed it.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jim. Thanks for your time, Rodney.
Hey, thank you, Rodney. If you want, I was going to want to give you my email, jim@waterfallgym.com. It's real easy. I would really like to see what you got there. I'll put that in tonight.
Let me have it again.
And open up lines of communication. If there's any way I can be of service to you, brother, let me know.
What is your email?
Jim@waterfallgym.com.
Jim and then at waterfalljam.com.
Yes, sir.
All right, yeah, I'll shoot that prompt over to you, and then hopefully it'll help you. Yep, and we'll communicate. Yep.
Thank you. God bless you. I appreciate it. Thank
God bless, brother.
you. Every day.
Thanks for being here, guys. Thank you for your time, Rodney. This is greatly appreciated. This is a game changer. And like I always tell people, you got to learn who you really are, where you're really from, and where you're really at. We've been deceived on one of those things. And who knows? If you can't figure that out, maybe you can ask AI. Who knows what AI might tell you?
The best thing is being able to figure out now I can hear what you're saying. I couldn't at the beginning, Brian. So thank you. Thank you,
I think
Rodney.
it's going to be a
Thank you.
game-changing tool. Thanks, Rodney.
Yep.
Yep.
Bye-bye.
Good night, guys.
Take care, guys. Peace.